Welcome to the Practice Squad Podcast, episode 24. I'm John. I'm joined by my co host, Mark, and we just finished as a podcast our very first week of playoff football, and what a week it was. Um, I can't think of a play like a wild card weekend on memory where all the games, with the exception of really San Fran, were that kind of exciting for one reason or another. And even San Fran played close. So how are you feeling about everything, Mark?
I'm feeling pretty good, dude. It was a good weekend of football. I'm really glad we got to watch it. I think it was weird. It was, really a lot of those games we and most people figured it was going to be not very close, and they ended up being close. But that's just the NFL playoffs for you. And just when you think that a team should win by a lot, you have a game. Um, but what an awesome weekend, and it sets up an amazing weekend for next weekend as well. So that's what the NFL playoffs are all about, man.
Yeah, no, it was great, and we'll kind of get into digging into each of the games separately, kind of talking about the relevant stories and topics that are coming out of them. But there is some, outside of playoffs NFL news going on as well. I think the first one that I want to cover, just as a Lions fan, is as of recording this, just a couple hours ago, it was confirmed that Ben Johnson pretty much contacted the Panthers and was like, thanks for the opportunity. Not interested. I'm going to stay at Detroit for another year. And as Lions fan, like Mark said it on the podcast, like it's critical to the Lions' success next year that I think he's around. I think it greatly improves our odds, not just to win the division, but make a run in the playoffs. So that just massive news from the Lions. And I think it's a huge testament to what Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes are building there. It's special. It's an attractive place to play football. It's an attractive place to coach football. I don't think I've ever been able to say that as a Lions fan in my entire life.
Because it hasn't been attractive to play football in Detroit in our lifetime. It really hasn't. We've had to go out and acts of desperation trying to get free agents to come here, had to overpay so many guys that weren't worth the money we were giving them. That's just what Lions fans have had to go through for really the last 40 years, you know? And it's a sign of something special going on there, that not only does your offensive coordinator choose to stay there and want to, turn down head coaching opportunities to stay and be a part of something special, but you have players coming to the GM, coming to coaches and saying, listen, I want to be here. This is where I want to be. I want to be a part of this. What do I need to do? What do we need to do financially to make this work? Right. Like they're not asking for the max amount of pay. There's putting wiggle room in their contracts. Right. And we've never seen in Detroit three players that are on contract years come and say that to a GM, and not to mention an OC that has head coaching offers coming and saying no to those
Yep.
opportunities. It's a testament to a few things. One, for sure, to Detroit and what is happening right now with that football team and the buzz around it and the success that they think that they can have next year. But it's also a thing I think you've seen other coaches start to do, like Sean Payton, right, where there's not an Eric Bieniemy right in Kansas City. They're these coaches that are clearly favorites for head coaching jobs for a couple of years now. And obviously this is the first year for Ben Johnson as a candidate, but to say no to offers and wait for the better and right opportunity is something that we're not used to seeing that in the NFL, because it's such a rare thing to get an NFL job offer as a head coach. But if you keep doing what you're doing as an OC or Sean Payton, right? If he just keeps waiting it out, he's going to get a head coaching job whenever he wants it. But it's a matter of which one does he want. And I think Ben Johnson's going to be in the same boat. I think if he does the same thing next year, if the Chargers job opens up, that's a hot, attractive job to want to go take. And then he's just waiting for his right opportunity. So I think there's a couple things going there, but it's a really good sign for Detroit.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think what are you inheriting by going to the Panthers or the Texans, right? Teams that are looking for results right away, that probably will cast you aside if things start to go south. Where he's very comfortable at his job, he's loved in Detroit. Everybody appreciates the things that he's doing. I agree that you might obviously massive opportunity to be a head coach regardless of where it is, but if you have the opportunity to be picky and you're comfortable with where you're currently at, like I don't think Bieniemy's any rush to leave KC. Why would you be, right? You're helping build a dynasty there. So you're always going to kind of wait for the right opportunity that actually fits, your situation. And also, for those that aren't familiar with what Mark was talking about, it was reported today also that 3 Lions players approached Brad Holmes and said that they would, put some wiggle room in their contract, not, maybe a little bit below their standard market value that they'd get elsewhere to stay in Detroit. And those players were Bugs, Anzalone, and John Kaminsky. So, not bad players by any means, right? I mean, all three of them had a
All
pretty
had an
decent
important
impact.
role. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's just unheard of, man. Like you hear, like John said before we came on, you hear that like with like the Bills and Chiefs and teams that are Super Bowl contenders every year where players are
And you might hear it with
great.
one player with those
Right.
guys, right?
Yeah. It's like normally guys want their money and they would choose the money more than where to stay. But for some reason in Detroit, there's something going on where these players are buying in and they understand that in order to get a contract done, they might have to make a little wiggle room to stay there. And they're willing to do that. And they're actually starting the conversation. And that's a sign. That's a really good sign for your Lions fan because that means those guys are bought in and people want to be in that locker room. And
Yeah,
that
and
hasn't
we
been the case
are
in a long time.
loaded on not only draft capital, but cap space as well this offseason. I cannot wait to see what Brad Holmes does if Detroit's actually an attractive place for free agency and then like just filling out the rest of our roster with a really strong draft, which I have no doubt that he's going to have yet another strong draft with all the capital that he has
Yeah,
because he has crushed it 2 years in a row now. And
he's
I don't think there's
crushed.
any debating that. So
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
looking at what Bob Quinn did. I mean, I was looking at Bob Quinn's rosters, and like there might be three guys from those 3 years of draft classes that are still on the team, right? Like Taylor, pretty much your O line that we filled out, and that's about it. Like
Yeah, it's
everybody else
def
is gone.
he's done a great job. And this time of year, John, as you look at, I mean, also coming out in news, you had the Chargers, right? Staley decides to part ways with the quarterback's coach and with their offensive coordinator. Um, I, you know, I see it as a scapegoat. I think it was, higher ups came to him and said, "Listen, we're either chopping you or you got to chop the offensive staff and, find something that works with Justin Herbert." And so he chose to let go of his offensive coordinator and save his own ass. And that's a perfectly understandable choice. But I was talking to John before we came on, and there's been times in recent history in coaching where coaches have chosen to not do that. And I used Mark D'Antonio at Michigan State as an example. I know for a fact that part of the reason he stepped down and was, I don't know how much he was asked to step down. They weren't going to fire him at Michigan State. But I think he was pushed to kind of do that because the offense wasn't working. The defense had a couple good years, and they said either you fix your offensive staff and fire them and bring in someone new, or maybe step down. And he chose to step down. He was so loyal to his assistants, and you just don't see that very often anymore in coaching. I wanted to give a hats off to him and how he handled that. But Staley's he's not going to give up that position that easy, right? If he had to let go of Lombardi, then he lets go of Lombardi and bring somebody else in and try to work with Justin Herbert, which by the way is probably one of the most attractive assistant coaching jobs you're going to find right now. Getting to work
Easily.
with that offense.
That offense in general is, I mean, they have a good line, great receivers, one of the most athletic running backs in the league, and Justin Herbert. I mean,
Yeah,
anybody who's
it's a
qualified for
dream.
that position is going to be, biting their nails to get over there for sure.
It's a dream.
So,
It is a dream. And
um,
then Sean Payton's doing, Sean Payton in his interviews. I don't know, John. What are your thoughts? This is probably the last coaching carousel we'll talk about before we get into some other stuff here. But he's taking interviews with the Broncos, and he's talking to the Texans, and it's like, what is the point? Like, do you want that job?
I think I can see the Broncos because their defense is loaded and uh, they're looking for a coach that can get something out of Russell Wilson. And I mean, you think about Russell Wilson's profile as an athlete. Sean Payton coached a guy for a decade that kind of has a similar profile, right? A little undersized, more, really strong arm. Like, just, I think, because man, I can't imagine that Russell Wilson just forgot how to read defenses and stop going through his progression as a quarterback. That just doesn't make sense, right? He's been doing that effectively for a decade now. I don't see, why all of a sudden he goes to Denver and he forgets how to do those things. I think it is coaching at the end of the day. And so I think Sean Payton could get the best out of Russell Wilson. But yeah, Texans, no. Panthers, I don't think the Saints will trade Peyton in division, no matter what they want for him. Colts, maybe, right? That probably, depending on who the quarterback is. I think that matters a lot.
Yeah,
But
it
I
just
also,
seems.
a year ago, or not a year ago, a few episodes ago, you said, I don't know if he's going to actually take a coaching job this year. And I didn't agree with you then. I might agree with you more now on that because I don't think there's, a lucrative opportunity, kind of like what you talked about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why
Like
rush?
if I'm him, I would wait. I mean, just
Right.
keep doing your broadcasting, stay in the booth. You know, you don't need the money. I mean, you have the money, so just and you know that job offer is going to come. So whenever he
Right.
wants to do it, and whenever the right situation, I mean, if the Chargers don't have, if they don't win a playoff game next year, Staley's done, and then that
Yep.
job is yours. You
Yep.
know, if the Cowboys struggle next year for whatever reason, I mean, you never know with Jerry Jones what he's going to do. So I would wait it out if I'm him, but it's just interesting to see that he's actually taking interviews with these teams that were just abysmal this year and don't seem
Yeah.
attractive at all.
And they love him at Fox too, so they'll pay him probably whatever he wants to stick
Yeah.
around there. So, yeah. And, oh, also, sorry, I know there's other topics, but there is a lot of coaching stuff going on. Jim Harbaugh officially staying with Michigan too.
Yeah. Saw
The
that.
quote that stuck with me with that, honestly, he said, "Don't try to out happy," and I think that kind of fits a few of these situations that we just covered with coaches, where it's like, if you're comfortable in your situation, if you enjoy what you're doing, like it's no guarantee that you go to be a football coach that you love being a football coach with one organization versus another organization. And I think he's at the age now where he'd probably just rather keep his family in Michigan and keep doing his thing. We'll see if that changes, right? I think a national championship would change that for Harbaugh. But right now, I'm happy to say that he's still Michigan's coach, and I'm sure we're going to
Sigh
take
of
another run at
relief.
it.
Sigh of relief
Huge
for
sigh of
Michigan
relief
fans
for
because
sure.
there was, I had my thoughts about what he was going to do. It just, I think he entertained the idea a little bit and decided to stay.
Yep, and that's
But
pretty much what he did last year too.
yeah,
So I don't know. And then Sean McVay sticking around as well. So we'll see. I mean, that was interesting to me because like I wonder what his game plan is. Right, long term, is he going to stay as coaching? Because he's a young guy, right? I mean, he could realistically coach for 30 more years if he truly wanted to. But he's got a ring. He's shut a lot of critics up. They had a rough season, but I'm sure they'll bounce back because he's a really strong coach. I'm just kind of curious on what his long-term game plan is. Is he coaching for another year? If
that,
that's
I mean, that Amazon broadcasting deal, John, is pretty hard to turn down. Like, if I don't care how much you love coaching, broadcasting is easier than coaching. Okay, it just is.
a
So,
whole
and he
lot
would be
easier.
damn good at it.
He's already great on camera.
Right, like he's going to be a natural when he chooses to do that. Not to mention, Amazon was offering him a lot of money. So I don't know, man. I found that interesting. I think he's coming back because maybe Stafford's maybe behind closed doors admitted that he's going to be back, and they do have a very good roster. They just have to fix up the offensive line. Um, I don't know. I was
I would say
surprised to
fix
see
that
that.
in the draft, but I don't know if you can't see.
Right.
That's the weird like catch 22 of doing the F them picks free agency play is once, like, let's say you don't win a Super Bowl, right? I know the Rams did. Let's say you don't. Once you're stuck in that sign big free agents and trade picks away, you are screwed. Like you really are. And yes, you could do work some amazing GM magic in order to make things happen, but like there's no fresh, cheap, young talent coming in anymore. And then all of a sudden, oh, we need to fix our offensive line. Oh, geez, we're going to have to go out and sign a bunch of free agents if we actually want to do that. And that's messy, right? You can do that in moderation. You can't make that your entire strategy. And the Rams don't have any high draft picks this year. So
And
I'm
you can
curious
look
to
at like the
see.
Colts, right? Like the Colts doing what they've done the last few years with quarterback issues. Instead of getting someone and developing them, and by now they would probably have their guy if they would have done that. Instead, they've gone with the veteran route and it hasn't worked out for them. But CJ Stroud did declare after a short little bit of it seemed like he wasn't so sure what he was going to do. And I think something that's worth noting, John, and this is an interesting thing to talk about. I want to hear what you think. I think it took him so long because of the NIL. He would have made I don't want to guess because I don't know, but millions of dollars as the quarterback at Ohio State next year through boosters and through what NIL deals can offer. I mean, he would have been the face of college football, Heisman favorite by a lot. They would have been national championship favorites by a lot, and that's a hard thing to turn down, right? Especially if you're now. It's not only just the pride and the ego of I never won a Big Ten championship or a national championship for Ohio State like I came here to do, but also I could have another shot at doing that and make millions.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for the higher round guys, like this might be less of a conversation, right? Because like your rookie deal, if you're drafted in like the first or second round, is probably going to beat any
Yeah.
NIL situation. But like, what
Right.
if you're Blake Corum, right? And you're deciding between declaring for the draft and coming back for another year. I'm not
Yeah, it's
so
different.
sure that a rookie deal being, maybe a fourth round pick,
He might make
fifth round pick.
more at Michigan as a coming back. And
That's what
here's
I'm
the
trying
thing,
to
like,
say.
and here's the other thing. It's a weird thought, right? Like CJ Stroud, it's tough, right? Because he's going to be probably the third or fourth pick, right? I think the Colts are probably going to take him if he's not taken before that. And you know that coming into the draft, barring anything crazy, that you're going to be a top 5 draft pick, and you know how much money comes with that. But you also know that then that starts your NFL career, right? And how many guys have we seen come in, especially Ohio State guys? Nothing against Ohio State, but come in and it doesn't pan out, right? These quarterbacks come in and it doesn't pan out. It doesn't look right. It's not the right situation, and then they're out of the league in 3-4 years. You play another year of college. You improve more, you get another million, few whatever dollars into your bank account, and then you go get and he probably would be the first pick taken next year. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thought. Like, also he risks having a career-ending injury or or an injury that sets him back and he can't play as well.
No, there's always that risk, obviously. I think that like and obviously you're on limited time in college anyways. I think for guys again that are like going in higher rounds, this isn't as much of a thought. The guys going in later rounds where they can potentially make more in NIL and also, your odds are kind of
Yeah,
stacked against you or a lot more stacked against you, right? Again, like if you're Blake Corum, why wouldn't you stay at Michigan until you're out of eligibility? You're making a ton of money, you're undersized, and that's money that can set you up
it
for the
changes.
future.
It's really changed. Like, we're seeing it right now live. Like, it's changed college football in that
Yeah.
aspect for sure. I
And it
mean,
can positively affect your future too, right? Like think
oh,
about all
for
the guys
sure.
that don't get drafted or don't make it in the draft and after, 5 years of dedicating everything they have to playing college sports, they're left with nothing financially.
Yeah,
And now instead, man, some of those guys, it's like a semi-pro league now to some degree where it's like, okay, you can make some good money here if you invest it properly or whatever,
yeah,
like you're in good shape even if you don't make it to the league,
yeah.
even if you don't make it to the next level.
It's
So,
completely changed the decision making process for sure for those mid round guys like you're talking about, like Corum or other people. I mean, it could even sway to the point where it's starting to affect even the biggest names like CJ Stroud. Because I mean, you can't convince me that that wasn't part of his. There's a reason he took that long to declare. I mean,
right.
he's been projected as a top 5 pick entire season. Like, he's known that. And he took till the last second to make that official to declare, and he was thinking about it. And I think that it's changed the game. It's changed college football. It's changed that whole draft process and what that's going to look like. I mean, Stetson Bennett, if he had another year eligibility, you can't convince me he wouldn't stay at Georgia and make he would be the king of that state, of that city, of that campus for another year and make God knows how much money through NIL. And
Yeah,
who knows how long he's going to last in the NFL, right?
right.
I don't know. But he would have another successful season at
Right. I
Georgia.
mean,
So
what?
there's
He's probably going to be a third or fourth round pick this year if he's lucky, maybe. So,
I don't
yeah,
know if he even gets drafted, man.
that'd be
It's
crazy.
it's
National
tough.
championship team. I don't know, man. I feel like somebody's going to have to take a chance on
I
him,
hope
right?
so, John, but I wouldn't be sad. We've seen this story before where guys like him just get kind of pushed and pushed and pushed, and all of a sudden he's signed as a free agent. And I don't know. I'd be surprised if he goes before round 4. To be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see him as a later round pick. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. But I mean, again, national championship. Like, you got to be
I know.
somewhat
I'm
of a
with you, dude.
competent quarterback, somewhat of a
Yeah, I'm
competent
with you.
football player. So, yeah, it's crazy. All right. So that's basically all of the outside of playoff bubble news. So I guess we can dig right into it. I'm just gonna share my screen here. I just got a little bracket to help us follow along. Maybe we can zoom in a little bit. Cool. How does that look? Good.
That looks really good, man.
Great. Okay. So starting it off with the Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, I I really don't know what to say other than this is the worst playoff choke I've ever seen, and probably the most Chargers like style loss I have ever seen, just based off of their history as a franchise. But also, man, like this is where legends are made, and I think Trevor Lawrence truly solidified himself as a franchise quarterback that is in the league to stay through this win. Because any quarterback that isn't a leader or lacks the ability in the NFL, to actually get something like this done doesn't get it done. And somehow he was able to rally his team and go and carry them to victory after being 27-0 with 4 minutes left in the second quarter. I mean, unreal. Absolutely unreal.
It's a horrible loss. It's a horrible loss by all accounts. I just want to throw it out there, and this is going to be a common theme for this episode. My bad takes this week, because I did take the Chargers and John took the Jags. You saw early on what the Chargers are capable of doing, and why I said that they could beat the Chiefs and that they're this legitimate threat in the AFC. Because when they are playing to their standard, they are a dangerous, dangerous team with a loaded roster. But you have to finish the game. And they absolutely handed that game away. The Jags, Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half, 3 of them in the first quarter. That
So
you
bad.
should never win that game when your quarterback throws 3 interceptions in the first quarter. You should never win that game. And the Chargers capitalized off of all of those turnovers. And it just is how they took that 27-0 lead, John, I think is part of why this is so bad, because the Jags basically spotted them 27 points. And you have to give them credit. And Trevor Lawrence, let's make this clear, is going to be a stud guy in this league for a long time. The guy's never lost a football game on Saturday, John, in his life.
I
He's
guess
never lost
that's
a game
true.
on Saturday.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. The dude's been playing football since he was 4 years old. He's never lost a game on Saturday. That includes high school playoff games. That includes, by the way, he was a college quarterback for several years at Clemson, played a lot of Saturday games, never lost. And then here he is in the NFL, and it's ridiculous. It's a very impressive win. They're a dangerous team. Kansas City better be ready, because they're a hot team. When you play a red hot team, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, and they did not expect to be here, or at least, a lot of people didn't expect them to be here. So we've seen, with the Lions, what it's like to play with like a I don't give a shit attitude. Like, just come out there and just play your game and, just try to be the spoiler. Like, it's scary, right? And honestly, like, and we'll get to it, but like Cincinnati Buffalo is going to be a damn good game too. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, it's disappointing. Like, and man, honestly, I know something had to happen. I know it was either Staley or his offensive coaching staff. If I was the Chargers GM, I would do away with Staley. Like, he has made a lot of really bad coaching mistakes that he gets bailed out because of how talented his team is for several years now.
For sure.
Not just this year, but last year too. We all forget or don't forget that they missed the playoffs last year because they were going to do a fun little truce thing with the Raiders and tie the game so that they both could make the playoffs, and then took a timeout like an idiot.
He's definitely cost that team some games, and he's definitely on the hot seat. The pressure's on him next year. I don't think you can put all of this loss on him. You have a 27-point lead. A lot of stuff has to go wrong, and it's out of the coach's hands in that point. He has a role, and he's definitely partially responsible. But I don't think you can completely blame him. You have to put some of it on Justin Herbert. You have to put some of it on their OC Lombardi. You have to put some of it on the defense. Joey Bosa did not help. Like,
definitely not
that tantrum. I don't know what it is with grown men throwing. Grow up. You're a professional athlete. You're in a professional image. This is your career, and you're gonna slam your helmet on the ground. Your head coach, who you should have some respect for, picks it up and hands it to you, and then you slam it again. I don't know if you saw the clip of that. Just shows me that they don't respect Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
If imagine someone did that to Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Oh, they would be out of the stadium.
Fired, cut. It's just, that's alarming to see in front of a
but I
image.
do think he made a good point though, where he said, I am going to get fined $40,000 for talking shit on the officiating of this game, and the refs are going to face 0 bad consequences for making bad calls. And the play that he threw that tantrum about,
he was right.
The tackle was lined up wrong. He jumped early and he held them. Penalty, penalty, penalty. And there was no flag on it. And then the ref is the one that approached Bosa because he saw him pouting.
That I agree.
And then
The
through
ref was
like
totally in the wrong. Boza said something to the ref, which
he did.
obviously
I don't think he said anything to the ref to start. I think he
he
said he was pouting while walking away, and the ref followed him and kept the conversation going, and
so
then Bosa snapped
you're
down.
missing like a second of that clip because right before he walked away, John, he does turn and say something to the ref, and then he walks away. And the ref obviously didn't like what he said. And listen, as a ref, you're gonna have people. You have to be able to take shit from people. Like that's part of being a ref. But you should absolutely not chase down someone that just said something to you as he's jogging off, minding his own business now, and try to get him to say more. Because that's what happened. He said, "Well, really, what did you just say to me?" And Bosa probably said it again, and he threw the flag. It's like, dude, you're not. Your job is not to pick fights with these players. You're not playing.
Right,
Your job is to just referee
right.
the game.
Because
And I
then
agree.
now you're punishing a multimillionaire, right? A
Yeah,
professional athlete for some shit that he wasn't even provoking at that point in the
at that
game,
point he
just
was
so that
done.
you
Right?
could
He
throw a
said his
flag on
piece. Yeah, he
him.
said his
Right.
piece. He was walking off to the sideline. I would Boza absolutely has a leg to stand on in his argument. Doesn't make up for the fact that you blew a 27-0 lead. I think that frustration clearly came out in that moment, but you got to be
Totally.
more mature than that. The
No,
throwing the
don't get
helmet
me
and
wrong.
all that.
I'm not making excuses for
Yeah,
Bosa. I just think in the middle of him acting like a 2-year old, he did have a couple good points where it's like,
he does. Yeah, he
man,
does.
these officials should be full time and they should get paid enough where it makes sense to actually fine them or dock their pay for making atrociously bad calls because
I agree.
that's how we treat NFL players. And if that's how we treat NFL players and we're giving these refs power over these guys, the
Yeah,
ability to alter games over these guys, then there's got to be a change, right? They can't be part-time guys. It just doesn't make
I
sense to
agree.
me.
I
So,
agree, man.
um,
It's a good
yeah,
point.
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else worth talking about in this game, but I mean, just crazy. It was so weird too because I just had that feeling at halftime. I was like, what if the Jags put
How about
something
the
together?
return of the tight wing formation and just hand the ball off in a power like his middle school to Travis Etienne? We've seen that now. Penn State did that in the Rose Bowl against Utah, and you've seen this is a copycat league, copycat coaches. These coaches watch football as a whole, just like you and I do, and anyone else that's listening to this show, and they steal stuff. And
Right.
they took that from, whether that Penn State game is the first time he saw it or he wanted to do it elsewhere. It's been in the playbook. They actually ran the same play against the Chargers in that first game where they blew them out early in the season
Hmm.
on a short yardage situation. They did the same thing, and they basically said we want to put Asante Samuel Jr. in a position where he has to come up and tackle Travis Etienne, and he's not going to. And he clearly took a horrible angle. I don't know what where his eyes were on that play, but he got outside of him in a second,
And
and
it
it
was
was.
over.
I mean, fourth
Yeah.
and one, you can't give up the edge like that. So clearly they saw something, but what a play call, man! Fourth and
Yeah.
one, what a play call.
Wild. And then I'm gonna save Cincinnati, Baltimore. Let's jump to the maybe less controversial game with Miami and Buffalo. So look, I'm really impressed with how Miami played in this game with a third string quarterback. That's pretty amazing to do that against this team. And honestly, I don't think it's Thompson's fault they lost this game. Waddle and Hill both had really bad drops at very critical moments.
Early
I know
on
you.
too.
Oh yeah, and later in the game too. I mean, Waddle had a really bad one. I think in like the third quarter or something like that. So, and look, a lot of people are dogging on Josh Allen right now. When you are this gifted of an athlete and you are this good at the game, sometimes mistakes come out, and like we've seen it all season, right? Like this, he makes boneheaded decisions at times, and I think it is because of the fact that he tries to literally put the entire team on his back and just play superhero at points. Um, and it's look, you can get away with it against maybe Miami. You're not going to get away with that against Kansas City and Cincinnati. So hopefully he cleans it up. But at the same time, something I saw is like minus the turnovers, like he would have probably thrown over 500 yards or something like that. I think he already had like close to 400 yards passing or something like
So
that in this
here's
game.
there. I have several things to talk about. One, the drops piss me off, dude, because I mean, as a former receiver, like there's nothing that drives me more insane than watching a perfectly thrown ball get dropped. And it's such a, you could talk about turnovers and the impact that has on a game, but drop passes, man, especially ones that are perfectly thrown, are such swinging moments of a game. Because it's not only did you not get those yards and that you would have just had, but it's like confidence thing for the receivers. It's a confidence thing for the offense as a whole, quarterback especially. Like there's nothing worse than a quarterback throwing the ball and not knowing for sure if his guys are going to come down with it, especially when you start getting in tight windows and trying to throw 50-50 balls, which the one to Waddle down the field early on was a dime. And it landed right over the shoulder, right where you wanted as a receiver, and he couldn't pull it in. They would have scored on that drive, at least a field goal.
Right.
So it changes the game. The Josh Allen stuff I think is really important to know. I'm a little bit worried about Josh Allen. This isn't just a this game thing, John. He's turned the ball over all year long. And early on, people complained, and said it was because of the injury and his elbow or whatever it was. He's healed now, and he's still just making some bonehead decisions. I will say he's kind of done that his whole career. He's just gotten away with it because, like you said, of his natural talent. He did it at Wyoming. I'm sure he did it in high school. Like he's just so gifted that he can get away with it most of the time. And he's created a bad habit in doing that. And it sometimes comes out where he's playing like a little kid again. And I love that's what makes him so great is that sometimes it works and he does things that you're not ever supposed to do and he makes it happen. But there's also times he does it and it's a really bad time to do it. And I think that as a coach, you have to be able to kind of reel him in. And LaDainian Tomlinson just said this. I was listening to this before we started recording. LaDainian Tomlinson on NFL Network was talking about this and said Brian Daboll was his coach, right? And was probably pretty good at reining Josh Allen in and getting him to calm down and play more relaxed and not do as risky things. And it seems like, ever since he's left, Josh Allen just kind of has free reign and has kind of just let it fly, right? And there's times where that's awesome. And there's also times it's like, dude, what are you doing? I mean, some of those turnovers were not good. And like you said, he can't get away. Yeah, he can't get away with
protect the ball.
You can't get away with doing that against Cincinnati. You just can't. You can't. Because Joe Burrow is not going to do that.
Well, you know what Cincinnati just did, and this is a perfect segue, right? Is they got a critical turnover and ran it 98 yards back for a touchdown when Baltimore was going in to, probably, put themselves in a position to win that game. And man, I got to give credit to Baltimore. Without Lamar and without really any competent receiving core, they did a great job in this game. And it was, basically 2 or 3 plays not swinging in the direction that, caused them to lose this game. I don't think Burrow necessarily played hot by any means. I think he had a pretty average game. And I think that Huntley was playing his ass off trying to make something happen. And honestly, I'd say shame on Baltimore's locker room for all of the comments that were made after this game.
I couldn't agree more.
Your coach is throwing Huntley under the bus when this is a second string guy that is literally playing his ass off the entire game. Like I think his effort level, his ball placement, his decision making, like he was trying to win this game. And then Dobbins, talking shit about Lamar and acting like he's this big star. And it's like, dude, like you've had your ACL blown out for basically 2 seasons, right? You've been recovering from that injury for more or less 2 seasons. And now you're going to be a guy that you saw what that did to you and your career and how long that took for you to recover from. And now you're going to go and call out Lamar. Like what? Lamar who doesn't have his money. Like, I just don't.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for the Ravens at all. I do feel bad for Tyler Huntley because everything you just said is 100% fact. But shame on J.K. Dobbins for trying to say, well, the ball should be in my hands, and basically saying that if it was me, we wouldn't have turned the ball over. Tyler Huntley made a stupid play. Okay. He did not protect the football on the goal line. It was 3rd and goal. Very dumb decision, right? He will probably be the first one to tell you that. But as a teammate, you can't just go and say that that's why they lost. Is it why they lost? Big part of it. Absolutely a big part of it. But he also was the only reason they were in that game.
Yeah.
It wasn't J.K. Dobbins.
Also,
it was
maybe
Tyler
you
Huntley.
could question the play call too, because if you're going to try to do that as a quarterback from 3 yards away from the goal line or 2 yards away or whatever, there's a lot of risk to it, right?
It's stupid. It's super risky.
You're not 1 yard away, because if you're 1 yard away and you can just reach over and break the plane, like you can drop the ball right then and there and it's still a touchdown. But
John,
if you're not there, like
what do the Harbaugh brothers have in common? I'm trying to think of something. I don't know, maybe fumbling on the 1 yard line. That's something that they both seem to do in big playoff games.
Yeah, or hate the media. Apparently, did you see that mid-game interview? And Harbaugh's nice.
She asked horrible questions. She asked horrible questions.
She did, but he was totally a douche about it. Like he was
Oh
so
yeah.
mean about it. And the thing about Harbaugh, Jim, I'm referring to is he's actually nice about it. He just immediately grabs one of his players and go, "Oh, you should talk to this guy. He's the star of the game," and then runs
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Jimbo and John are listen,
Yeah.
they're great coaches. They're great coaches. But it's funny, man. They both have the same thing happen in a big playoff game, and it cost
Yeah.
him the game, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the play call for him to jump over the top, John. I highly doubt that it was. It was probably just supposed to be a quarterback sneak, and he chose to do that.
Which even
Um,
then, a 3-yard QB sneak,
I know,
kind of a
especially
silly
when you
play
have the
call.
running game that they have, right? Like run a version of your zone read or your triple option.
Yeah, Dobbins
You
and
know, that's
Edwards
what you
had been
do.
running up and down the field that entire game. So, I mean, yeah, and then I do really just want to focus on, what Dobbins said because again, like how do you not sympathize with another player who again has not been paid yet trying to protect his knee because if he doesn't, that's a year off and probably $100 million mistake, and that is not an understatement, right? Because if he blows out his knee, he's
I'm
not
gonna
getting the money that he
I'm gonna
wants.
bash Lamar, and also I do agree with you though. I'm gonna bash Lamar because I think that he's an idiot for trying to be his own agent. I think that that's coming back to back. I think that's backfiring big time. You can't convince me that he wouldn't have had a deal done by now if he had a legitimate agent that knew what the hell they were talking about.
I
Um,
can convince you. And his name is Roquan. He was his
yeah,
own agent on the Ravens and signed $100 million deal with them.
I guess, dude. But a
So
quarterback, it's different, and you know how it is with Lamar. Like Roquan's a safer guy to pay. Roquan there's no doubts about what he's gonna do as a linebacker. Lamar
sure.
has issues of injury history, the weight, the style of play. There's been questions about him since he came into the league. I think he's proven most of those people wrong, but still, I still have my worries about him in terms of paying him long term. And
Mhm.
I mean, maybe he has an agent and it still doesn't get done. But I just wanted to throw that out there and say for him, probably should have had an agent. And he's talking about a lot of money. Um, but I will say I'm completely in defense of him being done with the Ravens. Right? They didn't pay him what he thinks he's worth, and they absolutely should have paid him. And whatever. If you agree or disagree with whether or not they should have paid him, the one thing you have to admit is that if you're Lamar and you think you're worth something, and they don't give you that, and you've given everything that you possibly can to them, I wouldn't be showing up to the games being everything that I normally am. You think
Yeah.
you're worth more and you can get more elsewhere, I would
Well,
leave.
again, especially if there's an injury question and you need to protect your body to make sure that
Right.
you do get that money that you think you're worth because no one is paying that money if your ACL is blown out, period. So,
I'll be transparent too. I don't know how serious the injury is anymore, John. He's been out with a PCL for longer than normal. And I get that he's a running quarterback and maybe it is a lingering injury that he's not ready to play yet. I think that the fact that if he was paid, he would have played in that game, is what I'll say.
yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely. And do
like
not blame him for sitting because he's not
right,
playing.
I'm
I
not
really
blaming him
don't.
for sitting. He could have played, and he sure as hell could have traveled and been there to support and help Tyler Huntley
Yeah.
out.
Well, I think
I
that
wouldn't
was
do it
the true
either.
message. I think
Yeah,
him
that's the
not traveling
message.
was the true message that he's done with the Ravens. And look, man, between him and Carr and probably Tom Brady and maybe Aaron Rodgers
Oh,
even, which we haven't
I
talked
wanna
about
get into
that yet.
those 2, John. I
Like
wanna get into those 2.
there's so many interesting moves that might happen this offseason because who's quarterback needy then? I mean, the Jets, which is a great
The
situation,
Jets
good
are, the
offensive
Colts are,
line. I mean, Colts,
the
who
Raiders are.
not as good of a situation. Obviously, Raiders are going to try to find somebody to replace Carr. Lots of interesting stuff going on. But yeah,
Some
let's
good.
talk about Brady and Rogers real quick as our segue before we get into the NFC.
Yeah.
So Brady, his words were a little bit more vague. He said basically like thanks to this organization, and no true word on whether or not he's one retiring, two coming back to Tampa, or three going somewhere else. I'd say each of those possibilities are probably just as likely. I don't think he's retiring, but Tampa versus going somewhere else,
He
I don't
didn't get
know.
divorced to play one more season, bro.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean? Like, he's coming
he's
back.
got nothing
I don't
else
know
left to
where
do
he's gonna
now.
be playing. I don't think he's gonna be a Buck, but he will be in the NFL next year. I could see. I think the most logical thing would be, and it's funny because I think him and Aaron Rodgers both would want to go to the same spot, and they both have different reasons to go there. Aaron Rodgers, I think, would want to go to the Raiders to be with Devontae and to play in Vegas and to have all the spotlight, right? Like he's an attention whore guy. That's what he wants to do. And then Tom Brady wants to go there because of McDaniels. It's
See,
his OC.
my biggest issue with I think Rodgers would be a better fit. And the reason why is because Brady needs, at this point in his career, at his age, he needs a few things. And those things are an offensive line, a really strong running game, and a good, solid defense. And I don't
Yeah.
think the Raiders have any of those. I mean, they have it
They have the
in
running game with Josh Jacobs.
if they sign him, though.
Right.
Didn't they? So
There's
contract,
questions with that. Yeah.
lots of questions, lots and
So
lots of questions.
I think, dude, I think we could very well have just as crazy of a quarterback offseason as we had last year. Because you throw names like Tom Brady,
up.
dude. You throw names like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers into that hat,
Right.
mixed in with the draft guys that we're getting, mixed in with all the coaching changes. And here's the other thing that happens when Brady leaves the Bucs and when Rodgers leaves the Packers. Now those teams need quarterbacks, and it's like, well, who are they going to go get?
Jordan Love will be the guy at Green Bay. I think we saw.
I don't know.
Enough.
I mean, I think
I
you're
don't
right,
know,
but
man.
I don't know if I believe in him. I think that's the guy they'll go with. I just don't know if that's
I
who
saw
they
some
want to be.
sparks when he was in this past season, so we'll see.
I just haven't seen enough of him.
Yeah, Rodgers did say, just on this note, right? He pretty much said, if I'm gonna come back, I don't think he's retiring. If I'm gonna come back, it's to try to win a championship, whether Green Bay or somewhere else.
He said straight up, I think in the right situation, I can win an MVP again.
Yeah,
and I agree. Like it's not Aaron Rodgers isn't like the Lions killed the Packers. They're dead. And everything that they know with Aaron Rodgers and everything is dead because the Lions finished him off with that loss on Sunday night. But Aaron Rodgers is not dead. Aaron Rodgers is going to find another team, I think. I think that's clear. Yeah. I think he is done with Green Bay.
He's another one where I think, Vegas is attractive. I also think Jets are very attractive for him. So we'll see. It's funny. Both 49ers have been tossed out for both of these guys, by the way. I think that makes no sense with their current quarterback situation.
Aaron Rodgers will not go to the 49ers. He hates them for not drafting him. But Tom Brady very well could because he would fit in perfect into that system. Absolutely perfect into that. It would be the best system that Tom Brady's been in his entire
with Jimmy
career.
G and everybody else.
I know. It doesn't make sense. But I'm telling you right now, for Tom Brady's purpose, would 100% be the best fit he's ever had in his career to be in that Kyle Shanahan offense with that offensive line, with that defense, with those weapons. Would be absolutely the best fit he's ever been in. So, yeah, I could see that as well. But Aaron Rodgers won't go there. He hates them. And he's a Cal kid. He hates them.
But he hates them because he wanted to be drafted by them so badly, and then
but he's not going to go. He's not going to go and take their. Yeah, he's not going to go and take the. But like we want you now. I think Aaron Rodgers.
He's had his Super Bowl hopes ruined by them. What, 3 times, 4 times?
Several times, dude. Several times. Yeah, he's not going to go there.
So crazy. Okay,
but it's going to be fun to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. I cannot wait. We're not even halfway through the playoffs and we're already kind of speculating on all of these crazy things that are going to transpire basically.
It's hard not to because it's
there's going to be mock drafts in the offseason. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff. So I'm excited for it. So NFC, I want to personally start with the most boring one, San Fran and Seattle. I think we all kind of knew what the outcome of this game was. I have to applaud Seattle for playing a good first half against San Fran. And then as soon as they stopped playing a good first half, it was San Fran's game all the way. They definitely showed like why they have this much hype behind them. They are so freaking good. I cannot wait to see them play Dallas.
This was the one take of the weekend I was spot on about. It happened exactly as I said it was going to happen. San Francisco, dude, they're going to win the Super Bowl. They are my second week of the playoffs pick, and that could change again every single week of the playoffs. But I think that they're going to win the Super Bowl.
All right, very reliable, solid.
Dude, they look so good.
Yeah,
they look so good on offense, so good on defense, and they just are special. The way they're playing, they're having fun. While Brock Purdy has been so damn impressive in that system, and you can say, well, it's because he's in a friendly system. Yeah, he's in a friendly system, but he's also just thrived in it.
You still got
He
to
was
execute, and
You
you
still got
still
to
got to
execute.
make good
And
passes, which
and
he,
by the
man,
way, the throw he made that Ayuk dropped at the end of the game was
insane.
one of the best plays I've seen from a quarterback. That was Mahomes and Allen-esque, dude. Like that
Yeah.
was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was amazing. And like again, like what does this team do about their quarterback situation? Because they traded several first round picks to go get Trey Lance, who now is gonna have to compete with a guy that's a year younger than him, that is way cheaper than him, even on their current contracts. Right? Like, I don't know what they're gonna do. And maybe Jimmy G is just a permanent second string guy there that can always do his job, or maybe he goes somewhere else and gets a bag. I'm not sure, but wild situation with that. And I think you're dead accurate, Mark. Like Purdy's playing his ass off. Like
He is.
no doubt.
And there's some rust and some nerves, and you saw it early on. But that team is loaded, and they have enough to help him. And there's been this knock, a rookie's never, a rookie quarterback's never won the Super Bowl. I think that changes this year, dude. I think that he can do just enough. That team is good enough. The coaching help around him is good, and they have such a damn good coaching staff.
It's incredible.
Their defensive
Probably the
line
best in
coach,
the
by the
NFL.
way, was at Central Michigan while I was there. Daryl Tapp. He's such a good coach, dude. Such a good coach. And I mean, I can imagine how fun it would be to coach Nick Bosa and those guys, but he's doing a great job. Like even
Probably defensive player of the year,
their
potentially.
defensive coordinator is crushing it, doing a great job with the guys they have. I mean, even their weakest link on defense, their other corner was getting picked on the whole game, and he was stepping up to the, and making plays. Like it's just they're a scary team. I think they come out of the NFC easy, and I think that they surprise everyone, and we see an NFC winner in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I'm gonna segue into Dallas and Tampa because I know you got some talking to do about this one, but I'll say this much, right? In your defense, right? Because I agreed with you, and I don't like Tampa. I don't like Dallas. I really didn't. I really couldn't have cared less who ended up coming away with this game. But congrats, Dallas fans. Yes, you won a playoff game in the exact same fashion that you have all the stupid hype around you in the regular season. You beat a team that doesn't have a winning record in the playoffs, and you beat them badly. That's what you do in the regular season too. You beat up on bad teams, then you lose to good teams in embarrassing fashion. So yes, against San Francisco, absolutely San Fran's my favorite. It's not even close. Tampa, Dallas, you could toss up. I wanted to see Brady win it because I don't like Dallas, and this is the dumb stuff that they get away with every single season. It stops at San Fran, and I am so confident in that take. It's not even funny. So that's all I got.
How about the kicker in that game, John? Before I get into I have to still throw
4 extra points,
dude. 4 kicks in a row that dude missed.
I don't know how that's even possible. Like
it's like a less than 1% chance of that happening.
So crazy. I mean, by the third one, wouldn't you just be like, "All right, coach, I'm just gonna hang up for the rest of
it"? Dude,
the crazy thing is
that I wouldn't have let him even fly back with us on the plane. He would have been cut. He would have been stuck in Tampa. He's actually going to stay on the
next
team
week. Yeah,
yeah. And I mean, if you miss kicks, if you lose the game next week because of a missed kick, you can't blame anybody but Jerry Jones and McCarthy, because this dude just showed he's not ready for that moment. And there's so many kickers.
From what I understand, he had a really solid regular season, so that's what I'll say. But okay, that doesn't matter. Like
it doesn't matter,
make
dude.
your extra point kicks.
It's I mean, this is your job. It's a professional. Like, it's what are you doing for me lately type of thing. And this dude shit down his leg worse than anyone I've ever seen. I mean, I hate kickers to begin with. Like, I really wish they weren't even in football, to be honest with you.
I was about to say, can I back you up and just have you explain that one a little bit?
Why I hate kickers?
Yeah.
Because kickers are included as being a part of a football team when, like, they're not. They're like in this, like, they're in like this own little club of their own where, like, they don't really practice. They don't, like, they show up for special teams periods in practice. They just kind of dick around all the time. Like, they're not even like a real part of the team. You know what I mean? And then the biggest moments of a game always come down to them, and they get all the glory when they make the kick for being out there for 10 seconds. And then the guy misses 4 kicks. Like, if a receiver had 4 drops, there were 4 touchdown drops, like, that dude would probably be cut. But because this dude misses 4, and they weren't even close. He missed these extra points horribly.
I mean, some kickers are boys though, and like
There's a few kickers that I
we had John
respect,
Kamek
dude,
on our
but for
team.
the
He made
most part,
tackles for us, and some moments like
yes, there's kickers that I respect. Like McAfee's a guy like but he's like not a normal
yeah.
kicker, right? Like
No,
he'll go and
he's
light
a
somebody
football
up.
player that happens to be a punter, is
Right.
what
Those
he
guys
is.
I
Yeah.
respect. Those guys I respect. Um what I hate is the kickers that are like, the soccer dudes or like the specialists where they don't do anything else ever. They've never played another sport. They never played actual football. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just biased because I've had so many games ruined by kickers as a player. But, and as a fan, I don't know. I can't respect them, dude.
Yeah.
I
I
can't
mean, I
respect
think
them.
that is like it being up to chance to some degree, like is kind of what makes like field goals and extra points worth what they are, right? Like they're
Oh,
not
it's an
touchdowns for a
important
reason.
part of the game. I just wish I
Yeah.
just wish there was a way around it, dude.
But what I'm trying to say is that like like that there's a reason a field goal's worth 3 points versus a touchdown being worth six, and that's because all right, like let's go put the dude out here and go
Yeah,
see
and
if he can get it.
there's a
Upright.
reason extra points are called an extra point because they're like considered like a gimme. Like here you go, here's your extra point. 7 is the number, but the dude clearly
Right.
not so much. Listen, I've made fun of enough kickers. I need to make fun of myself, John. Can I do that?
Yeah, so I just I think we've both seen what's transpired on TikTok. So just maybe like go ahead and show us a little bit of some of the very nice comments that Dallas Cowboys fans are
I'm just
leaving on
gonna
your
read
take.
through some of the top ones. Now, what happens, and this is what I really hate. I make my takes. And I have been on quite a hot streak actually with my takes in the past few weeks. College playoff games, I was pretty accurate with. I picked the Lions to beat the Packers. I was on a pretty good streak, right? And I'd had a few posts blow up and get a lot of attention. And there were some people that gave me credit and said, hey, this was a really good take. This dude was spot on, right? They would come back after the game and give me credit. And I knew damn well I was feeling pretty good about it. So I made takes and picks on all of the playoff games this week, and I was right on a few of them. The obvious ones, Cincinnati, Buffalo, I was right on those. San Francisco, I had spot on, but those were easy picks, right? The games that people were truly unsure of would be the Giants and the Vikings, and then Dallas and Tampa Bay. And I made strong opinions on both, and I was wrong on both. But Dallas fans are ruthless, okay? And I want to just read through some of these comments because I'm getting absolute straight up bullied on social media right now.
Which you deserve it because you're
I do
wrong.
deserve it. I do deserve it. And I gave them a bunch of shit before the game because they were already in my comments talking shit, and I was responding right back because it's super fun. And I appreciate the back and forth little game we're playing here. But the worst is when you're wrong and the game is already settled and they come for the final overkill because it's overkill. But this is some of the stuff I'm getting still like they're happening as we're recording right now. I'm getting notifications on my phone, and I'll just wondering what he's thinking today. Remember, don't overthink it, stupid. This aged well. Tampa Bay, what happened? Go Dallas Cowboys. Ha, thought you knew. Sorry about that, buddy. We aren't struggling anyways, and we win anyways. 31-14. What happened, my boy? What happened, buddy? This didn't age well. Your analysis is great. Not 31-14. This turned out great. The best one, I think, one of the best one is the ones that came before. They literally said saving this so I can come back to it after, which was like 3 days ago. They saved it and commented that, and then they come back and say what they have to say, and that's the worst. That's the worst. That's the most demoralizing one.
So we started when Mark and I got on before we started filming. And Mark was telling me about all that's transpired on TikTok, and I was just like, "Well, buddy, like, welcome to being a social media personality because now every opinion you have is recorded on the internet forever, and every bad take you'll never be forgiven for, and every good take, it's like, all right, you did your job for once,
What I
and
need, what
that's
I need listeners to do is convince John to download TikTok. He's a conspiracy theorist and won't do it, and help
I'm
me
not a
run the account.
conspiracy theorist.
I,
They look
I
at,
don't.
they track all your data.
Yeah, I know they do. They do. But listen, it's not your. It's our podcast account. You don't need a personal TikTok. I need help on here, dude. I'm getting straight roasted by I'm taking on the entire city of Dallas by myself. I need your opinion every now and then to even me out, or at least your smart wittiness to come into the comments and say something to defend me
Look,
or
I'll
yourself.
I'll come in, and look, what we've been doing is I just film like a YouTube short, and there we go. Like I send it to Mark, he gets it on TikTok, we're good to go. I will come in with equally strong opinions on San Fran, Dallas, I will double down 10 times harder than you doubled
Please
down in
do.
Tampa and Dallas. And if they want to come back and roast again after that, then what are you going to do about it? But I'm
Because
feeling good about that
John,
one.
I'm doubling down on that as well, by the way, just so we're on the same page. And if we both double down and Dallas somehow wins that game, we might get death threats from Dallas.
I'm
They're
excited.
already destroying me. And I assume this isn't going to stop anytime soon. It's going to go throughout the week. And then when I put out
For sure.
when we both put out our takes,
Oh yeah.
and we are in serious trouble if Dallas somehow pulls that one off.
I'm not worried about it personally. I can say
I'm
that
not
with a lot
either,
of
but
confidence.
I
I'm
was
not
pretty confident about Tom Brady as well, and he did not perform. And that game was, you get Dak Prescott. He rose up to the challenge. He
Look,
was getting a lot of
I
hate.
got to give
5
him credit.
touchdowns.
Yep.
Played
I
really
got to give
well.
him credit. The
Kellen Moore
best
called
game
a
of his
hell of a
career.
game.
Best
Oh
game
yeah,
of his career, 100%.
Kellen Moore called a really good game offensively too. I also don't know what the hell Tampa was doing on defense at times. I was trying to figure it out.
And they didn't have a run game, and they bailed on it.
Oh,
I mean, Tom Brady threw just short of 70 passes that game.
Dude, you see the stat? He had that in 2022. In that season, he broke the record for most pass attempts in a season. You know who he's ahead of now?
Himself?
No, Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford. That
In
makes perfect sense.
2012 or 13. Statford.
And I honestly, I think, right, a lot of pass attempts is a testament to a failing offense, not a successful one.
For sure. It's if you look at the list that he now is the top of, it's bad teams for the most part. It's teams that were struggling.
That checks out. That checks out for sure. And then finally, Giants, Minnesota. And look, I've been saying Giants are frauds basically all season, and they did come out and win this game. So huge congrats to them. I'm still not super convinced because congrats, you beat up on the worst defense in the league. The Vikings are frauds. So the Vikings are frauds because of their defense. So I struggled to really, figure out who I wanted to go with for this game. I think I picked Giants. I can't quite remember. I think I kind of did like this devil's advocate in both directions. And Minnesota, it's as simple as this. Fix your defense. You guys are going to be a good team, right? And the Lions started to figure out towards the second half of the season with their defense. They at least, stopped losing the Lions games. The Vikings never did. And their corners cannot cover anything. I mean, seriously. So
the Vikings defense was that in that game specifically, and they have been pretty much the entire season, as you've said. But in that game, it was horrible. I mean, you're not against like a dominant team by any means, and you're not playing against a serious threat of a quarterback that can make all the throws. You made it about as easy as you possibly could on Daniel Jones. And give him credit. He had the best game I've seen Daniel Jones play. I think by far he was the best quarterback of the weekend.
Very impressive.
He did everything that they needed him. He ran the ball for 80 yards. He was able to, make all the right reads on his throws. He threw the ball accurately. And the Giants are, banged up, dude. I mean, they were missing a couple guys, and it just doesn't matter. It just didn't matter in that game. Minnesota fans just have to be so crushed. A lot of people are coming at Kirk Cousins and, talking about his playoff career record and whether or not he's the guy for them and if he can get it done. He played a fine game.
The offense was not the problem.
Never
with the exception of the very last play, right? And
can we pull up the?
Yep.
So obviously,
we'll
defend Kirk Cousins, but let's break this down. Defend Kirk Cousins as a whole in this game, not his fault. They played good enough offensively to definitely win this game, and they've been good enough all year to win games, and they have. But in this moment, I just never, and we've seen other guys make the same mistake, not just Kirk Cousins, but in this moment, I understand progression football and what they're thinking and what they're coached to do, almost to the point where you're like a robot as a quarterback. Like you have your first read, your second read, your third read, and then you have a check down, right? And you have pre-snap, you have alerts and everything, right? But what happens here, there's a progression on this play, and he goes through his progression, but you have to realize the situation. The progressions are out the window. You go through your progression. If it's not there, you scramble, you make a play, you throw it up to Jefferson, you throw it up to somebody, hope for a PI, hope for a crazy catch.
Right?
Yeah. Obviously, it's tough because you can see in this, if you're watching this on YouTube, we're showing kind of the dots in slow-mo of where they're moving. You probably could throw one in to Osborne on the deep over here and hope that he comes down with it. It's not super clear, but you also have both your deep routes, you have a chance. You know what I mean? Especially the guy on the left. I can't tell what
I was
number is
gonna say
that.
not the
Jefferson on
guy
the
on the
left?
right because it was triple coverage. I think it's Jefferson on the left. Is Jefferson 19?
No, that's Thielen.
That's
So
Thielen.
so Jefferson gets doubled. It actually gets tripled. You could see the effect, right? If you pause it, John, right here, there's
Here, you
three
can just see
dots
the
heading towards
safety crashing
Jefferson's
down on
side. Yeah,
him.
they were
Yeah.
not going to let him beat us. So you have man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side, and that's Thielen. And I mean, Thielen's more than capable of going up and making that play. He's done it. We've seen him do it before. So as a
Thielen is
Saints
also
fan,
very good at bitching for pass interference. He
oh
did
yeah,
that all season.
John, do you remember a certain playoff game against the Saints where Kirk Cousins made a throw to Thielen to win the game?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that game.
Yeah, so we've
Yeah.
seen them do that before. I just don't understand why you don't scramble here or throw it up to somebody.
You know what's hilarious is being like a Saints fan and look, I went and saw I had a Facebook post from 2011 saying I love the Saints. So I have been closely following the Saints for 12 years now, which is probably about the same amount of time that I've been a fan of football, so therefore following the Lions. It feels just as defeating to be a Saints fan as it does a Lions fan at this point. Probably more defeating. What you
I
just
mean,
did there.
you had Drew Brees and you have a Super Bowl.
We have a Super Bowl, sure, but at the same time, like there are so many moments through being a Saints fan where it's just I don't want to talk about it. Right, the Rams playoff game, the
That was one of the
Minneapolis
worst of all time.
Miracle, like even last season, them going 9-8 and not making it because just it's rough. It's rough.
The
That's
Saints
all I
have had
gotta
a
say.
rough, yeah, it's been
Quick
rough for
segue.
you.
Yeah,
It's been rough for you. But this was bad.
football's
This was
pain, right?
embarrassing.
Like that's why we love it. Is it hurts.
And Kirk
And
said
this
after the
hurts.
game, he
This
said
hurts.
after the game that this is probably the most painful loss he's had.
I'm sure, especially he's going to be thinking about that check down until September.
I just don't know what you're thinking, man. Like, I know what happened. He's coached and he trains himself, and these quarterbacks are psychopaths, dude. They go through these progressions, and that's all they do when they're watching film. It's boom to boom to boom to boom in your head, like clockwork. And he was doing that, felt pressure from which is part of being a quarterback, and decided to go to his check down, hoping that Hawkinson would make a play. But
Well, and also, I mean, Hawkinson is huge and he has very
he is,
reliable
but
hands. There was maybe some, way that he could shake it and get a couple yards, but I think he was still
I
4 yards short by the time he
yeah,
caught it.
I think you gotta take it. I think you gotta take a
Yeah,
chance, and just throw it down the
get
field.
over the yellow line, man. Throw the ball over the yellow
I mean, in
line.
single coverage, dude, and Thielen got on top of his guy. Like in single coverage, if you just throw it up and you give the receiver a chance to come back to the ball and go and try to either catch it, or there's a very good chance that he gets interfered with in that
Right.
moment. And you know how refs are with throwing the flag sometimes in those moments too, right? Sometimes they hold it because of pressure, but sometimes they feel the pressure and throw it. That's a home game with a home crowd that's going to be really loud if you don't throw that flag. And it was pretty damn clear they wanted the Vikings to try to at least make that game
Well, no, yeah, I mean,
because of the
honestly,
previous call with the roughing
that's
the
what I was
passer,
gonna say.
which was a
That fourth
joke.
down situation shouldn't even have existed in the first place because he
Yeah,
got sacked on the fourth down before that, and it was probably the worst roughing the passer I've seen all season, which is crazy considering I've seen probably three
we've
or
seen a
four this
lot.
season
That
that
rule
were
needs to
atrocious,
change. That rule
or at least make
absolutely
it
needs to
reviewable,
change.
right?
That's the worst. It's there's nothing to even review though, and like even the one that we saw in the on Dak was just he put his body weight on him. Well, dude, that's how you tackle people. Sorry, the guy weighs 300 pounds. Like
Right.
it's not his fault. He's in the NFL. He's a defensive lineman. He's gonna weigh a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
Mark, I remember you and I having a conversation like sophomore or junior year of high school where it's like, man, by the time that we're our dad's age, like, are we gonna be seeing like wrap up sacks, right? Like two-hand touch sacks to protect the quarterback? Like, is the NFL
right.
gonna evolve to that point? And like obviously we were just kind of like joking, speculating. But the way this roughing the passer situation is going, like we are not very far from that because that's basically what they're asking them to do. Is hey, like bring him down gently, like you're putting him down for a nap. Like don't tackle him because like no, the quarterback's still a football player. Last
Dude,
I
and
checked,
we saw what is scary and potentially happening. We saw in a game, I forget, I think it was the Giants, a guy just not sack the quarterback. You know what I'm talking about in week
yeah,
18? He like
Yeah.
was right there. He was ready to swing him down, and he didn't swing him down. And the guy just kind of stepped out of it and threw the ball away. And it's like that's to the point where we're getting where guys are actually hesitating to finish a
Yeah.
tackle because they're scared of a penalty getting called.
There needs to
Um,
be clarity on it sooner than later because, I'm not trying to, diminish any of these players' health, right? Like, they are putting their bodies on the line, and we should, as a sport, try to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't have any serious long term effects on their health. But at the same time, the quarterback is a football player, just like every other football player out there. And when you play football, tackles happen. Like,
it's part of the game, man.
it's a part of the game,
I,
and they're getting paid the most out of anybody else on that field to do that particular job. So yes, I think you can get hit every once in a while,
And there's
and
a double standard, dude. There's a double standard. I mean,
totally,
as much as we love Josh Allen, you saw him throw an interception, and out of frustration, the defensive lineman standing there, Wilkins is standing there with just kind of his hand on him, basically just shielding him, not even block. And if he wanted to, he could have killed Josh Allen. He could have planted him into the ground, and you know. But Josh Allen starts to try to fight him, and get off a block and push him, and he's like, "Oh, you want to do this?" And he lays him out, and then the Bills O linemen come to try to defend him. It's like, dude,
right.
Josh Allen started that. Like he was doing what he's supposed to do and not hit the quarterback. And then Josh Allen, being the little kid that he is, and just which is again why we love watching him, tries to fight a guy who's 3 times his size and gets thrown to the ground and
I
is
I no, he didn't get thrown to the ground. He hit him so hard, and
that
the
he
dude
fell
was
off of
so
him. Yeah.
unmovable that he fell when he tried to hit him. So
Yeah.
great. But like,
It's
I
a
mean,
double
and
standard.
Mike White got split in half this season, and like, oh, he's not an important quarterback, so like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? Like, just apply it equally. I don't care if it's Daniel Jones or it's Josh Allen or it's Mike White. Like, if a dude gets sacked, that's a football player. Last I
Yeah.
checked. So, anyways, I think that wraps up the playoffs, and we can kind of move into making picks for next week. Only 4 games, so that makes it pretty easy. Um, Kansas City, Jacksonville. Look, this Jacksonville team is dangerous. I do not want to diminish what they have accomplished this season, and obviously that playoff game. They're going to be coming in hot. They're going to be coming in confident. But we cannot forget that this is Andy Reid. This is Kansas City. This is the team that has, is essentially a dynasty in the making if they aren't already. Um, I think Kansas City's going to win this game. So that's my take on it. I think Jacksonville's has a lot of potential to play them close, but I also don't think that they're ready for whatever Andy Reid's been scheming up for the past 3 weeks since he's had this bye week and has just been chilling out, eating cheeseburgers, and probably drawing up whatever ridiculous things that the offense is going to do.
John, I always have the hardest time making picks and feeling really good about them, no matter what the game is, when one of the teams is coming off a bye, especially in the playoffs, because Jacksonville, I'm telling you, they're as hot as hot can get. And Kansas City, there's teams that come off of buys and are better because they prepared during the bye and they handled the bye responsibly. And then there's teams that don't. You have guys going to the club. You have guys taking days off when they normally would be in the facility watching film or getting a workout in, or getting some extra throws in with the quarterback, or whatever the case may be. And I don't know because I'm not a part of Kansas City. I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know what the feel is there. I'm going to pick Kansas City because I feel like they've been there. They've done that. I feel like they have mature guys on their roster that can kind of be like, hey, we have a bye, but we're not going to let this be a setback. We need to take advantage of it. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs because I think they handled the bye correctly. But if we see them come out a little slow and we see the Jags come out with a little more magic, because I think they do have some magic left in them, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Jags win this game.
Yeah,
That's what I'll
I
say. But I am
again,
going to pick the
I made
Chiefs.
that pick with no discredit to the Jags whatsoever. It's just this is the Kansas City Chiefs, the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
Amazing team that has
Yeah.
been for years now. Cincinnati, Buffalo, man. If Josh Allen treats the football like he did last game, I think Cincinnati wins this game. But they showed a lot of weakness against Baltimore, and I think Buffalo is destined for greatness and probably is going to clean up some of the sloppiness that they had last game. It's probably a nice wake up call for them. I'm going to go Buffalo here.
This is a legacy game, John. This is an absolute legacy game. This is such an important game for Joe Burrow and Josh Allen's legacies and who we're going to talk about for a long time.
I
And I
cannot
know
wait.
that I know it's not a ticket to the Super Bowl or anything like that, but I think that the winner of this game will be in the Super Bowl. Um, and it's such a hard pick, man. I think that I want a lot of me thinks that Joe Burrow is going to play better than Josh Allen, and he takes care of the ball better, and he's a little more conservative and consistent with what he does in terms of decision making. But what Josh Allen can do, there's things Josh Allen can do that Joe Burrow cannot do. And I also just think of a matchups wise, Eli Apple is an absolute liability, and he guesses a lot, and he's going to get matched up on Stephon Diggs from time to time, and that's just not going to go well for them. And I think that they're going to take advantage of that. So I'm going to pick the Bills because of that. I think Eli Apple's going to get toasted. He seems to get toasted in many big moments. Cooper Kupp mossed him for a game winner in the Super Bowl last year. He jumped on a route against the Ravens for absolutely no reason, gave up a 40-yard touchdown. You can't do that against Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen because he can extend plays and he'll toast you.
Yeah, not to mention Knox and Davis, and I
And
mean even Beasley had himself a good game last week. So
I trust the Bills defense more than I trust Cincinnati's.
yeah, I'd
That's the
say
only
that
reason
much.
that's the only reason I'm picking the Bills. I think that Joe Burrow and that offense is going to be pretty damn good the whole game. They're not going to give that game away. It's going to be a close game for that reason, but I just trust the Bills to get one or two more stops more than the Bengals.
Sure. Giants Philly. I'm gonna go Philly here. And I think the bye week thing that you said does scare me a little bit because I do think that there's a ton of validity to that. But I also think that Philly's just been like unstoppable this year, and I think that their guys are going to be fresh and ready to go. And they got a lot of vets in that group. They got a lot of guys that have gone deep into the playoffs. I think it's going to be a good ass game. And I think Philly's going to win it.
How worried are you? Are you a little bit worried about that?
I'd say with the way the Giants have been playing, it's not a shoe in for sure.
I'm a little worried about it.
But I just think Philly's the better team, just top to bottom, great coaching, uh, amazing offense, strong offensive line. I think they have more weapons on offense, and I think they have a better defense. So,
yeah, I'm gonna pick Philly, but I'm really worried about this game.
I'm
This is the
excited to
game I'm
see it.
most. This is the pick I'm most worried about being wrong of the whole
Sure.
weekend. And it's just because the Giants played so well, and it just again that the bye week and Jalen Hurts not being 100% the last few weeks of the season. I mean, if he comes out rusty, you can't afford that in a playoff game. You throw a couple bad balls, that game could easily swing early on in the Giants' favor, and then you're trying to play from behind. It's again, the Eagles are not built to play from behind.
Yeah, but Hurts got reps in before the bye week. I don't think his rust should be that bad. He's probably been pretty locked in the few weeks, especially with the narratives that have kind of been around him. Not being a franchise guy or getting carried by the rest of his offense, whatever. I don't think any of that is accurate. I think he's going to show up. And they've been unstoppable all season, and they've beaten up on the Giants already. So, which I know sometimes is additional points to the Giants because now you're playing the same team for the third time. But I
Yeah, it's
digress.
just tough. It's just tough with these teams that are so familiar with them, each
Divisional
other.
teams,
It's
yeah.
I think it's going to be a close game, but I will pick Philly.
And then Dallas San Fran, like I said, look, Dallas, you beat up on a team with a losing record in the playoffs. Congrats. I think it stops at San Fran, man. There's just no way against that defense. It's not looking good, I think, for Dak and the boys.
I see a blowout, and I'm doubling down. I'm
Yeah,
doubling
I'll
down.
double down. Look,
I'm doubling
blackjack,
down.
lose a hand, double down.
I said last week that Tampa would win, and that Dak would turn the ball over, and that they would stop the run, and they have to rely on Dak's throwing. I was right about that. However, did not turn the ball over. They did put the ball in his hands because they had to, because the run wasn't as strong as it needed to be, but he made plays. This time around, same thing will happen. They'll run the ball. They'll struggle to run the ball. They'll have to throw. And Dak will turn the ball over. He will force it into windows that he shouldn't. He will try to force it to CeeDee Lamb.
He'll be
And San
running
Francisco
from his
will
life
run their
for
offense
Bosa.
into – yes, he'll be running for his life, dude. I'd be horrified to play against him. I'm not going to lie to you. This is going to be not a close game. And San Francisco's offense is just going to – they're going to score at will. They're going to score 35 plus.
I like it. I really do. So that's our
double
predictions.
down.
Oh, yeah.
Dallas fans, we're going at it again.
Round 2, baby.
Expect even more of an intense TikTok and a short coming from John. We're doubling down. Both of us agree, and it's not just going to be me saying it on our socials this time. John, you're coming in with it as well.
All right, that's fine.
And we're doubling down. And if
you're going to get roasted, I'll get roasted with you. I will gladly risk that in order to trash talk Cowboys fans any day of the week. Let me know. I'm ready to scrap. So, yeah, that's our playoff predictions. Again, thanks to everybody that's been watching. Obviously, the format of the podcast is, going to kind of change more and more as we go into not only the rest of the postseason, but into the offseason. But we appreciate everybody listening. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I know I had a good time just talking about these games at length, right? Like sometimes, we don't want to keep you guys
get
here
everything
for 3 hours.
Yeah,
exactly.
John, real quick before we sign off, is your Super Bowl pick the same?
Yes, absolutely.
Same 2 teams.
Yep.
So you have San Francisco and the Bills.
Yep.
And you have the Bills winning.
I don't know who I have winning. That part's tough.
If you had to choose right now, and this can change.
Right now, in this moment, I feel like San Francisco would capitalize on the way Josh Allen has been playing in a way that they could not recover from. Why do I say that? Look how Miami just played them. And now you're getting Miami on steroids. You are getting the master rather than the student, right?
That's one of your best takes you ever had, John.
Thanks,
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, I didn't expect you to say that. That's why I was hoping you were going to say the Bills, and then I was going to say that.
So now you're like, I don't have anything to add to this.
So that's the conclusion of this episode. John, yeah, he stole the final point, which I think is going to be right. That's also my pick.
All right.
For the same reasons.
Let's go 49ers. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.